Paige Mosbrucker. Audience. Steve Jobs was a well-known man all over the world. From creating a laptop to the iPhone, Steve was very successful. Along with his success comes failure too. Sometimes, in order to succeed, you first need to fail. According to the website allaboutstevejobs.com, Steve Jobs was born on February 24, 1955, in San Francisco, California. Many people don't know that Steve Jobs' biological parents, Joanne Schiebel and Abdul Fattah Jandali, put him up for adoption when he was born. He was adopted by Paul and Clara Jobs. Steve Jobs grew up in a neighborhood of engineers working on electronics and other gizmos in their garages on weekends. This is what shaped his interest in the field as he grew up. He went to college for a semester at Reed, but then decided he wasn't interested in the classes he was taking. So he dropped out and started to take interest in his friend Woz's new activities. Jobs decided to partner up with Woz in starting a company. On April 1st, 1976, Apple Computer was born. They started by selling Apple I computers in the Jobs' garage and selling them to independent computer dealers in the area. He convinced former Intel executive Mike Markula to invest $250,000 in Apple. In May 1985, Apple kicked him out of the company. He was devastated. Apple was his life. Eventually, Apple's new CEO asked Jobs to come back to Apple. When Jobs came back within the first quarter, Apple lost $700 million. Because of the loss of millions of dollars, Apple got rid of their CEO and made Steve Jobs the new CEO. Jobs thought the computer business wasn't doing as well as they would like it to. So Jobs decided to create an MP3 player, which became known as the iPod. The first iPod could only be used with Mac computers, so it helped with the sales of Macs too. They decided to make the iPod compatible with not only Macs, but regular PCs too. He had the brilliant idea of making a website for downloading music legally, which was called iTunes. iTunes was a success from the first day it was developed. Steve Jobs later decided to create the iPhone, and following that, the iPad. These things helped make Steve Jobs a very successful man. According to Apple Insider, Jobs focused on his family the final months of living. Jobs had a wife and 4 kids. His wife's name was Lauren Powell Jobs, and his kids were named Lisa, Reed, Aaron, and Eve. His daughter Lisa is his oldest kid, which he had with his high school girlfriend named Chris Ann Brennan. For the longest time, Jobs would deny paternity to Lisa and refused to give Chris Ann any money, even though he was making millions at Apple. Eventually, he took full responsibility of Lisa and said that she was his daughter. Jobs was a very busy man, so for most of his life, he didn't have much time for his family. It wasn't until his final months of living that he spent almost every day with his family and not as much time at Apple. Steve Jobs has a net worth of $4.4 billion, so he is a very successful man. Jobs wasn't only successful with the Apple company. When Jobs got kicked out of Apple, he became the CEO of Pixar. According to allaboutstevejobs.com, Jobs owned 80% of Pixar. He was also involved in the Disney Pixar switch, according to allaboutstevejobs.com. Jobs was also on the board of the Disney Foundation. According to allaboutstevejobs.com, Steve Jobs was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in 2003. The cancer could possibly be cured by surgery, but Jobs refused the surgery. He tried different diets and treatments instead. Since that wasn't working, a year later he finally agreed to have the surgery. He lived for a few years after the surgery, but eventually the cancer came back on October 5th, 2011. Only being 56 years old, Steve Jobs has passed away. Right after the release of the iPhone 4S. For the Apple company that Steve Jobs left behind, That will never be the same. According to business.time.com, Apple has shed a quarter of its value on Wall Street and has shed more than $100 billion in market. The company will never be able to do what Jobs did for the company. Steve Jobs is a man that was brilliant and is missed every day by many people. He was a very private man, so there isn't very much information on him. If he were still alive today, I know he would do amazing things.